Hey y'all,
How's it going, everyone?
I'm Jay,
I'm Chris the Bird Nerd,
and we
and we
are
are
the
the
Bird
Bird
Brains.
Brains. Hey, that sounded good on my end. Probably was off on yours, but
It was off on my end, but maybe that's a good, we'll see.
I've had
But,
people that have said they've liked it, and other people that are like, "Yeah, you need to get rid of it." But we're
well,
both dads, We got to keep the dad lame jokes going. That's like our dad intro, and it's probably never going to go away as much as you guys like it or hate it. So.
yeah, if you don't like it, get your own bird podcast, right?
Yeah, there you go. Or you could just join ours.
Yeah, yeah. Man, we've got it. It still blows my mind. I mean, I know I've said this 100 times. I've said it before. I started the whole bird social media thing. It's like basically a joke, not basically. Started as a joke to embarrass my wife.
Yeah.
And now I have friends all over the world that I talk to on a regular basis, and it's to have, I got it, one or two DMs this week. Hey, I've been listening to all your podcast episodes. They're so helpful. What do you think about this or this? It's like somebody in Jakarta, Indonesia, right, is like listening to this with subtitles. It's
Yeah.
just, it's mind blowing. It's awesome. I love being able to help people. I love making these connections. It's the coolest thing in the world. To be a part of that, and I'm
Yeah.
really just grateful for everyone who does listen and comment and like and subscribe and all the things.
I've thought about doing a few videos maybe in Spanish. I do speak Spanish. I don't think a lot of people know that, and so I've toyed with the idea of throwing a couple videos out there in Spanish, and maybe that'll be coming soon. We can then you don't have to just listen to the subtitles or read them. We could get
Um,
something in your language, but
Yo vivo en Costa Rica por 6 meses, pero mi español es muy mal.
there you go.
Um, yeah, so I mean, we could try, but ugh, I um, I was fluent. There was a time in my life where I was fluent, and that's long gone. But
Yeah,
I've got actually a good buddy of mine. I'll give my buddy Daniel a shout out. He was born in Colombia, so
oh,
uh,
nice.
we play internet games together sometimes, and sometimes I'm like Daniel, like speak more, like make me do it in Spanish. But my daughter's
Yeah,
taking Spanish now at school, so I'm psyched because
that's
I'm like
awesome.
I want her to bring it home and my wife doesn't speak it.
Yeah.
Um, so it'd be fun for me to be able to have like a secret conversation in front of her too. So.
My kids are always asking me, how do you say this in Spanish? Or, like we're a religious family, and they're like, Dad, can you pray in Spanish? When we're
Oh, that's
saying prayers
awesome.
or something like that. So we'll kind of throw a curveball to them every once in a while. Or they'll be like, Dad, do you really speak Spanish? And then I'll answer them in Spanish, and they just look at me. What did you say?
Because they don't know.
No, they have no idea.
Yeah,
So
I need
it's
to
pretty
like do
fun.
Rosetta Stone or something and
There
like
you go.
get back fluent because I love the Spanish language.
Yeah, I'd have to brush up on my Spanish as far as like talking about birds, because I'd have to, it's you have all the terminology, right? It's like I can speak Spanish, I can get through conversations, but if I'm like going to be like a medical translator, I work in the medical field, I'd have to like I'd have to go study all that language, how to translate it in medical terms. I'm not that knowledgeable there. So it'd be the same thing in birds. I'd have to probably go through ahead of time and be like, okay, this is how you say a zebra finch in Spanish, things like that. So I'd have to kind of
Right. Well,
study
and
up a little
there's
bit.
when I lived in Costa Rica, there I was actually on an avian biology research trip for a summer. I did a
That's so cool.
semester in Costa Rica, and so we I was having to do that. But there's two kinds of fluent, right? So there's the kind of fluent where you just speak it like a native. And I
Yeah,
was never that. I'm just
yeah,
because I'm not native. But there's also the kind of fluent where you can get your point across
yeah,
even if you're not saying
right.
the right thing. So like you might not just like the English example, I wouldn't know how to say like if you don't know how to say feet, but you know how to say the things on the bottoms of your legs that you walk on,
Yeah,
right? So you're saying feet without saying feet. So I
yeah,
there was a lot of that. Like I don't know
yeah,
how to say like bill of a blue bird, but I can be like like the nose of the bird that's
Pajarito
blue, right?
azul. Yeah, the nutty.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to study up on it for sure. Because, anyways, yeah, if we got some Spanish speakers out there that listen to our podcast, let us know. Maybe we could throw something cool your way down the road.
Yeah, that would be fun. And one thing I'd love to have, we could do this now. If you speak a different language and birds are real popular where you live, or you have some reason you want to do it, I'd be happy to send you the master and let
Yeah,
you translate it, and then we release it in your language.
that
So
would
if
be
there's
way
somebody
cool.
interested in translating an episode for us into the language of your choice, be happy to facilitate that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be
That
way
would
cool.
be
I didn't even
really
think of
fun.
that. We should do
Yeah,
that.
I just thought of it now. But yeah, if somebody wants to be our Spanish bird brain, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, come help
fan,
us.
fantastico. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're, yeah.
Sería muy
Um,
bueno.
yeah, that would be, sí, muy bueno, muy bueno. Gosh, my Spanish is terrible. I'm trying to think that I'm saying that would be great. I can't say it anymore. But
Sería muy bueno. That would be great.
yeah, yeah. So, um, let's talk about this real quick. What birds do you have right now, Chris? If somebody was looking for birds, what do you have that's available?
Yeah. Got lots of zebra finches. Just because you can't stop them from breeding. It almost seems like
Can't
zebra
not have a
finches.
lot.
Yeah, exactly. Canaries, Goulian finches, few different species of African species. You've got fire finches and amadinas, which are similar to like the cutthroats, but their whole head is red instead of just the slash. Um, and then several different mutations of borked parakeets and splendid parakeets. So the chestnut-breasted parakeets, which are beautiful birds. Uh, Starfinches as well. I think I've got through most of them, parrot finches, but throughout the year, I usually have on and off periods of when I have those available. It's really just on how successful I am at breeding them. Consistently, I've got zebra finches and society finches for sale just because they're easy to breed, but the others are kind of seasonal, I guess you could say. And right now, most of them are breeding, so towards end of summer, I'll have a good selection of birds for sale, and or coming into the winter months, so that we can prepare for the next year's breeding program. But yeah, those are probably majority of the birds that I've got available here in my aviary. What about you, Jay?
So right now, ready to go. I've got diamond doves, um, and zebra finches. As far as birds I could take a deposit on that will go weeks, months from now, uh, probably could do Gouldians. Uh, oh, and I forgot. Right now, or I guess these aren't quite ready to go, but definitely ready for deposit. I've got some Rosie Borks DNA is pending on that are being hand
Nice.
fed that I'm looking for some buyers, and then I've got I won't take deposits until birds are alive and being fed. Um, but I know I've got my cockatiel, got Borks, Gouldians on eggs. I should have more shaft tails pretty soon. Hopefully some parrot finches shortly. I've got canaries
Nice.
on eggs, so I could make unrelated pairs of canaries. I got both pairs of my canaries are on eggs again. Um, and I'm wondering if I'm forgetting somebody glaring, but I think that's it for now. That birds that if you're really looking, that's what I can make happen in the near future that I'm reasonably confident on.
I like that. So Jay, going into our topic that we have here, say I want some Goulian finches, and I throw down a deposit for you, and you say, all right, I'll get you some in a couple months. What would you recommend? I'm a first time breeder, right? Um, but I kind of want to dive into the deep end, going with the Goulian finches instead of like a zebra finch, something like that. What would your recommendations be for me before I get those birds?
So the you know we always talk about doing your homework. So this episode, right? You've read the title by now. It's how to do your homework. So
Yeah.
there's a with the rise of the internet, there's some really big positives here. You have access to essentially unlimited information.
Yeah.
Um, with finches, if you Google breeding Gouldian finches, you will get a good jillion articles. Now, what becomes difficult is how to sort through what's actually good information and out of all that stack.
Right.
So I approach it in kind of maybe a unique way. So the first thing I try to learn is not how are people doing this in captivity. I go figure out what a wild Gouldian is doing. And I don't just mean breeding, I mean their whole what climate do they live in? What, how long do they live? What do they eat? What are their general, patterns of life? And so the first thing I do for almost any bird species that if I'm thinking about getting in, it's new to me, is I go to the Wikipedia page. That may have a little section on captivity or in aviculture. It may not. But the first
Yeah.
thing I want to understand, and Wikipedia is generally very good for this. And for if anyone's about to chime in and say, "Oh, anyone can write anything on Wikipedia," that got changed like a decade ago. It's not complete. I was a Wikipedia editor for a time. That's not completely true. You can
Yeah.
Wikipedia is a pretty good source. Shouldn't be your only source.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll go on there and that'll have a thing like their habitat map, right? So it'll show for Gouldians, it'll show the map of Australia, and then it'll have like a darkened in patch on the northwest corner where Gouldians live. And the other useful thing that Wikipedia has is it all of that information that's in there will be cited. So
Yep.
that right there gives you like 10 or 15 articles. Then I'll Google it. There's a couple of one really good website in particular, as long as they have that species, is finchinfo.com.
Hmm.
Is a really good like in aviculture breakdown of a lot of the popular finches in aviculture. I don't necessarily agree with all their information, but it's a
Yeah.
really good starting place. And then I would say that like when you're going through all these articles, like read as much as you can, and we have a lot of YouTube videos between the two of us. Other people have good YouTube videos on specific species or general things. So don't find one or two articles, think, okay, I'm an expert now and I can do
Yeah.
this. Like I'll always be learning. I read a bird article today. I do it all the time. I always
Yep.
want to be improving. So maybe that's the first key point, right? Is no single source of information and always be willing to sort of expand your horizon.
Yep.
Um, that so you know Part of how I decipher what I'm going through that's good information is if I see the same or similar information in like five articles. So like as an example, Gouldians like to eat sorghum. That's a big seed that they like. So if you find five or six articles that all mention Gouldians like to eat sorghum, that's a pretty good indication that they do. If you
Yeah.
find an article that says Gouldians love to eat fried chicken, and then you don't see that in any other article, maybe we're skeptical on if they would actually eat fried chicken, right?
Yeah, well, and I think Jay, for me, agree with everything you said. I think for me, it's understanding, getting a base foundation, and that it comes back to exactly what you just said. Spread out your venues of information, right? You've got Wikipedia, you've got internet, you've got books. I know a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
books are outdated, but the general information that they share is common information, right? It gives you that base foundation of, okay, where's the bird from? What kind of diet does it like? What are my expectations in captivity? Does it need come from a warmer climate or a cooler climate? Do I, making sure that you have all that together. I think, I dabbled a little bit in aquariums, many years back, and it's, you kind of have that rule of thumb where if you're building a brand new aquarium, you get it set up, you get your water in there, and you usually let the tank cycle before you just dump a whole bunch of fish in there, right? Because they're before that water matures and cycles, it's going to do more harm than good with those fish, right? And then you usually try and get some of the fish that are hardier, right? As your test fish, you get them in there, and they kind of help cycle that tank, get that pH level to where you need it, and then you can introduce the bigger, some of the more harder to keep fishes and things like that. So similar with birds, right? I think it's understand, get your information right, understand what those basics are, do your homework, have your environment set up well before you get the bird. I think many times we do impulse buys and we're like, oh man, I love that bird right there, I'm just going to get it. And then you're scrambling to find something to put the bird in, and it usually results in a teeny tiny cage, and they're in there for a long time, and then you don't have the right environment. You've got them sitting in front of a window and they get direct sunlight and they can't get out of it and they get overheated. I mean, there's just so many things that could go wrong in that scenario. Whereas if you're prepared ahead of time, you've got your cage already selected, ready, you've done your homework on what that species of birds. I mean, nowadays, like you said, Jay, in the internet, you've got articles upon articles. And again, not every article is written by an expert, so it's take it with a grain of salt. There's things that maybe work for someone that's a little bit unorthodox that I probably wouldn't do with my birds, right? So it's like what you said, Jay. Find the commonalities throughout all of those different resources, and take that as your base, and then you can learn and expound from there as you go and you learn from the birds. I still have species of birds right now that I'm still learning with, and I'm still trying to figure out, okay, what's that sweet spot for these birds to really thrive in my aviary? Is it a different species? Is it a different bird that they're not liking, and that's why they're not happy? Am I not giving the right foods, or so it's really just trying to play that. But I have the basics down, so I could probably bring in most any bird and they would be okay and they'd survive, but I want to get them to thrive. And so that's where you're still adding that information on, doing your homework every day. And, Jay, we've owned birds for how many years and decades in our life, and we're still reading articles and trying to learn more and do more research. Because the more that we learn, the more that we can apply with our birds and have better outcomes, and have birds that are happier and healthier. And that's really the ultimate goal, right? We don't want to throw them in an environment that's not conducive and they end up dying, 2 days later because we didn't provide the right resources for them, or cages, etc. And so we want to make sure that we're doing it the right way.
Right. And I mean, I think for me, I've been keeping birds over 20 years. And 2 years ago, I would have told you with a straight face, 2 or 3 years ago now, I guess. I really started outdoor bird keeping in
Yeah.
21, beginning of 21. So we're back half of 24. So 3 years ago or whatever, I would have told you I was an expert on finches, probably with a straight face and not felt guilty about it.
Yeah.
Now, I, and maybe I come off as cocky on these, I don't know, but I know enough to know that I really don't know it all.
Right.
The deeper into birds I get, the more I find, oh, what about that or that, or
Right.
the more species I keep and the more
Yeah.
expertise I gain, I'm like, I realize how much further I am from the finish line.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be an expert. It's okay to be hungry for knowledge, and it's okay to
Yeah.
constantly be learning and trying to figure it out. And that for me, that's the purpose of this podcast, right? Is
Yeah.
trying to pass on what I know, and then through this podcast and because of social media and other things, I've also learned a ton. There are still people. I mean, so I fledged about a month and a half ago a fawn shaft tail, and I was shocked because I didn't know I even had fawn genetics, but I do. And so I was trying to figure out. I knew in the back of my head that that mutation is sex linked, but I wasn't sure exactly which went to what. So I was looking online, kind of found my answer, and then instead of just being like, okay, I think I figured it out, separate from that, I sent a message to Tony Arnold and was like, hey, what's this sex? And kind of acted, Tony, if you're watching, I think you do watch. I don't want you to be offended. I kind of played a little dumber than I was, but I was trying not to influence Tony.
Yeah.
And he came back with a metal chart that he has up in his bird room that
Should be a
explains it.
female if I if I'm
you're
correct.
and you are correct, and it has to be female,
Yeah.
genetically. So dad has to be the split, and then it has to be female. So,
Yep.
and I thought that, and then so I went and I could have gone to you too, Chris, and didn't think of it, but I was talking to Tony about something else. I was like, oh hey, by the way,
That's awesome.
um, and so he confirmed that, and it was like, okay, so I've
So cool.
gone, and that's exactly what we're talking about. I've gone, done my research, pretty sure I already had the answer right, really knew it,
Yeah.
confirmed it, and then went somewhere else to someone I knew would
Yeah.
know it and confirmed it again. And that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So you're trying to avoid confirmation bias, you're trying to avoid bad information, and the best way to do that is if three
And
different people tell me the same thing, then I know it's
right.
right, you know?
And if you feel like you don't have those resources, you don't have that Tony Arnold to reach out to and to ask those questions, reach out to us. And if we don't know the answer, we could probably get you in touch with anyone who does. And along those same lines, there are so many different bird forums out there through Facebook and other sites. So when I was first getting into it, like seriously getting into like breeding the birds and trying to understand genetics and the different mutations and all that, I joined a forum. It was called Finch Forum.
It's still
Tons
around.
of
I don't know if
yeah.
any
It's
still
I don't
uses
really
it,
do
but
it much anymore, but like that was a huge resource to me. There's a lot of different forums on Facebook that are species specific that they post a lot of stuff on. Again, granted, take some of it with salt, with a little bit of grain of salt. There may not be true experts on there and they're giving you advice, but like Jay said, reach out to several people, and if they're giving you the same advice, and I'd probably take that and run with it. And so there are resources out there. Reach out to us if you can't find any. We can try and get you in touch with with our connections and those that we work with throughout the world, right? Not just in the US. So I'm happy to help out where we can. But yeah, do your homework and reach out as much as you can, read as much as you can before you really dive into it. And then even once you dive into it, continue that, right? Continue to gain and expound your knowledge on these birds and making sure that you're understanding their well-being and what you need to do to provide a good environment for them. And usually in the end, it always pays off, right? I would say people that do their homework, they may fail, but they fail less often and they learn from those failures and
yeah,
jump
they
that ladder even more,
fail
right?
up.
Exactly. They fail up. And so I would say do that. Jay and I have had some mistakes. We've failed,
We've documented it
and we've
before.
documented, but it's learn from those failures and fail up. And before I dive into some of those trickier species again, I'm still trying to do my homework before I just jump into it, right? And so I think it's just do your homework, be careful, understand your resources, find that commonality throughout all those different sources so that you have, a good base to go off of, and then you can kind of jump into it and progress from there.
Right. And I think the last thing I'll say is, and it doesn't need to be me or Chris or in general, I'm saying find, if you can, a mentor or several mentors,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
don't even have to be older than you or even whatever. Like, so like Alex SoCal Gouldian, he's 10 years younger than me. He knows a lot about breeding Gouldian. So
yeah,
even though he'll come to me and ask me about breeding wax bills or whatever, I'll bounce a question off him, right? Or like Chris and I, we talk all the time about
uh-huh.
this or that, or it it is never a mistake, even if you think you've got it figured out, to just go check, right?
Right,
Keep getting back to this. Do your homework. Doesn't mean do it once and then you're done. That means
right.
keep getting reps in, keep figuring this out, figure it out together. Get your, if you've got a local bird club or if you're just doing it online, that's fine. If if you live in Timbuktu and you're the only guy within a million miles of you with finches, the internet is awesome. If you know about the internet because you're watching us on it.
Right,
So those are the kinds of things that make us all better.
absolutely. I agree.
Mhm.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah. It's my job to talk. I'm a talker. All right, Chris, where can they find you if they want
Yeah,
to ask you a bird question?
And I hope you guys do reach out. Like I'm extending the invite. Reach out, and I know many of you have. And sometimes it may take me a couple days just because we are busy to respond. But have patience with me. I always want to respond back to you guys. So reach out to me. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Bird Nerd. Instagram is Bird Nerd 4, and then Facebook and YouTube is just Bird Nerd. So please reach out to me. PM me. Comment on the videos here. We try to respond to the comments within a reasonable time if we can, and try and get you the information that we have available to us, or if not, try and send you to the right place to get that information. So yeah, how about you, Jay?
Yeah, I'm the Javiary or the underscore Javiary, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, which sucks, YouTube, and Reddit. Um, yeah, I talk to people every day. Almost everyone universally says they're so sorry and they don't want to bother me. Please bother me. I love it. I want to talk
Yep.
about birds. You're the
Yes.
opposite of bothering me. You're breaking me out of all the annoying stuff I have to deal with, and I get to talk about what I like to talk about, which is birds.
Absolutely.
Hence this podcast about birds.
Late at night.
Yeah, yeah. Could be. I'm starting to slur my words. I'm so tired. Still happy to be here. Right. So reach out, ask a question, tell us something we don't know. I want to learn. If you're like, hey, I noticed you're doing X, but I've been really successful with Y. Let's talk about it. Maybe I've
Yeah.
tried that and it didn't work for me, or maybe I've never even thought of that.
Yep.
Um, we can all always improve. Love to have conversations, love to figure stuff out. So give us a shout and let's help each other out. And I'll
Yes,
just keep
please do.
rhyming.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Catch you in the next one.
See ya.